Good afternoon. I'm Wenslaw Simiu, and I will be taking you through ArcGIS Open Data. I'll be simply telling you guys what ArcGIS Open Data is, what it is used for, how you can utilize it for your benefit. So all our products fall within the GIS platform, and this is why we have this architecture on your screens right now. So we have the services that are shared through, which are shared on premise or online, and we have this gateway that we share this content to desktop, web, and devices where you guys can access our data. So this allows organizations to manage their platform, facilitate sharing, and provide access to content and capabilities. The objectives of this webinar is just showing you how to create an open data site, how to configure the open data site that you will have created, and finally, how can you be able to easily share with the public, or rather with the private in an organization setup, your created open data site. So ArcGIS Open Data enables you, first of all, once you have uploaded your data, it enables you to share this data with the public, or rather with other individuals. Let's say you have agricultural data that you'd like people to utilize. Open data enables you to share this data with anyone who would like to access it easily using the templates that we provide. We host it on ArcGIS Online, and everything is taken care for you on cloud, and you do not need a server or anything of that kind to host your data, because we have already done this for you. And you can already leverage the existing investments you already have in ArcGIS. You simply need to know how to do what we are going to discuss today, and then you'll be able to go a little bit further in terms of utilizing ArcGIS Open Data. So, Open Data has some principles, 4 principles that we are going to discuss today. It is accessible, discoverable, explorable, and collaborative. Why do we say ArcGIS Open Data is accessible? ArcGIS Open Data is accessible because, one, users can easily access the data they want, and users can connect with the data at the source. Users also know the licensing information, and that is why we say it is very accessible. It is discoverable because users can view all datasets on the site, users can search for specific datasets, and users can see suggested related datasets. We will see examples to show how this works, where you just search, and by a click of a button you can see all datasets and related datasets. Why do we say open data is explorable? It is explorable because you can filter and sort data, you can search by location, and you can visualize data using different smart mapping and chart options, as we may see in the coming demo. It is collaborative because we allow people in the open data site to download data in multiple open formats. You may download data as a CSV, you may download data as a KML file, you may download data as a shapefile, and you may download data even as a geoservice. You can share and embed datasets and dataset views, and you can add desktop, ArcGIS Online, or any other tool. So it is really very collaborative, and once you have ArcGIS Online and you have some of our tools, then you will really enjoy open data. To begin, you have to turn on open data. Now, we are going to see in the demonstrations that you are just going to the settings part, and you go to the second last tab, which is the open data just above ArcGIS Hub. Once you turn it on, you enable it to be used by the ArcGIS Online organizational account. Otherwise, without this, then I'm afraid you may not be able to explore the ArcGIS Open Data. After turning ArcGIS Open Data on, then you will set the roles as desired, and then you will be able to say this administrator will be able to do this, and this viewer perhaps will be able to only view. This will be our editor and this will be our publisher. This does not mean that your data is publicly accessible. Your data is controlled within the organization. So after, you will now create the open data groups. These are very important because now, in order to have an open data site, you have to have some data that will be directly linked to the open data site. Now, how do we achieve this? On the ArcGIS online account, we have a specific group where we put our data, where we upload, we constantly update our data, and we do not need to always go back to the open data site. We will be doing our activities in this group. And once you create a group, it even allows you to operate seamlessly. Let's say you have an open data site in a company and you want to link up with another open data site overseas. So this group enables you to link up with another group in another organization, and they can access the same data in this group. So you will create and edit groups to organize open data content, and then you will set them to public and designate them as open data. We will see this briefly in our demonstration coming up. So you will go to manage sites. After creating a group, you will now create your site. Now, this is how the site manager looks. The image you're seeing on your screen, hope it is clear enough, but we will see this in our demonstration as well. So you can create very many sites, just depending with what you would like to talk about, what you would like to share, what you would like to put out there. You can create as many sites as you would like. You can finally, but not least, we will be looking at how you can configure your open data site. Now, all you need to do, first of all, is add the information. And the first and most important information of all is always the name, the URL. How can people access you? In the example that we see up here, the title is the Big Four Action Plan. And clearly, it rings to your mind that now this is going to be about the Big Four that were announced recently. For those of us who are Kenyans, the site URL is Make Kenya a Better Place. So you know that when you're searching your URL, then this is what you're going to get. You can make it private or public, and you can get to choose the map extent. As you can see, in our case, we have used the draw extent, and you can use the base map. You can also change the base maps according to the one that relates to what you're doing. We are going to also see this in the demonstration shortly. Configuring capabilities is very important because you see, in our open data, in our ArcGIS open data, we may have sections that need comments. You need to come to the comment section here and click enable. That the comment is the third. If you're looking at the image, the comment is the third section from the bottom. So we have the GeoHash visualization, the API Explorer, the document iframes, local projections, comments, private item views, and the search room. These are very important capabilities, and all you need to do is enable them or disable depending with what you would like your users to be able to do. And we are going also to see this in the demonstration shortly. How do you add your data and why? This is the place, this group manager is the place where you come and you say, I'd like the group that I've created. Let's say we've created a group called webinar. You will come to the groups manager and say, now I'd like this group to be in my open data site. So I'm going to add this group to my open data site. And that's what we have simply showcased here. I have added a simple group of agriculture because I would like it to be used. So when people search for content, they get content from this group that you've added in your open data site. If you do not understand right now, I will just be demoing this very shortly and you will be able to understand. So allow me then to go to the demonstration. And most people really like the demonstration like because you get to now see what we have discussed hands-on. This is a simple ArcGIS portal. This is the portal for Eastern Africa. You can easily create this. Remember that most and all of ArcGIS online things begin from the portal. And this is my content section in the portal. Now here I have put my content. Here I have put my maps, I have put my layers, I have put icons, I have put images, PDFs, CSVs, name them. All I needed to do was come to add item, and I added from my computer, from the web, from the cloud, or from another application. And therefore, we are not going to discuss how we are adding content. Rather, we are going to use content that has already been added. So, first of all, what we talked about is we said we have to create a group. So I'm going to quickly create a group. Let's create a group. So to create a group, as you have seen, I've clicked on groups. In our bar here, I've clicked on groups. I come to create new group, and I give it the necessary metadata. So let's create a short group name for our group. Let's say webinar, or let's call it open data webinar. So let's say open data webinar as well here. Let's say what tag can we give it? Well, let's give it a tag open data webinar. So tags are very important because these are what help when someone is searching for content on ArcGIS Online. So we can edit some of this. We can say who can view this group, let's say everyone. Who can join this group, let's say anyone. Who can contribute content on this group, let's say group members. Let's make it as public as possible. Now this is the most critical part of all, because you see, if you do not allow this group to be open data, then it will not be able to be used in an open data site. So we have to check this box, allow this group to be accessed in open data sites, and then create the group. So those of you who are following the presentation keenly have noted that the first thing we have done is we have created a group, and we have made sure it is open data. So these are other areas that you should look at. We are not really going to dwell here, but this is the section where you'll see members. Right now I have not added any members, but you can invite users. You simply come here, and these are the users in my organization. You can invite any. I'm not going to do that right now, but the settings is also very important, because there may be some important things here that you may want to do. You may want to prevent this group from being deleted accidentally. It happens that sometimes you may be going through and you delete your group accidentally, and this will really affect your content, especially if it's being used by the public. Another important thing on settings is just to come here and also counter check and ensure that you have allowed open data access. So that's it on the group section. Let's now quickly go to the open data site, where we will now jump into the open data site in full. So as I told you guys, open data site is found on the second last tab in the settings. So you come to organization, you come to settings, and you come to the second last bar, which is open data. So what you have to do first is enable open data. And we talked about this in the presentation. I've already enabled open data here, but if you do not enable and you're doing it by your own, then you will see an enable site button here, where you will just enable the site, and then you will have more or less the same. So you come to manage sites, and before we create a site, allow me to show you examples of sites. Before we create our own site, allow me to show you examples of sites. So this is an example of a site that has already been developed. This is an example of a site that has already been developed. It's called Open Data Census 2016 Ireland. So basically, let's say you need some data on sex, age, and marital status. All you need to come, as you can see, it has been configured really well. Explore data via census themes, and you can come here and say, well, I need this data. All you need to do is to come and click here, and you get all this data. We're going to see how we can be able to do this. This is a really well configured open data site, and you can see that further, we have communal establishment, housing. This is data on some of these areas. Let's pick, for example, occupation. Let's choose persons. So you can see that it is very interactive. You may download in spreadsheet, KML, or shapefile, as I was telling you. So this is just an example of an open data site that we are going to see how was it created. And you realize that as much as it may look complex, most of these are done using the templates provided by Esri. So this is a subsection. As you can see, this is another subsection. We are going to do all this. Let's look at other open data sites randomly. So this is another example of an open data site, and you can see how they have beautifully put their logo here. They have, well, they say, translate to French, view this site in English. So we'd rather view it in English because, unlike me, I know most of the people watching may not have an understanding of French. So basically, you can see that there's forest management, conservation, agro-industry, infrastructure, mining. So this is another example. This is another example of an open data site where you can come here and you can view a couple of data provided as well. So we have as well another section down here where you can see related publications. Well, this organization has kept it simple, and unlike the first one that we have looked at, and we will see how we can reduce and add these sections. We have a section for contact information and more information. Let's look at perhaps our second last example, and you can see this organization has decided to keep it a little bit even further more simpler. No imagery used on the first section, and we can see that we just have the icons, straight to the point. Explore our data categories. You can search for data here, near, and we can see council services, environment, zoning boundaries. And I love the way these guys have used the same icons for uniformity. We see that they have also just used a simple kind of foot layer, and you can see that indeed this is a very summed up site. Well, our neighbors regional center for mapping also have the open data site, and you can see that they have also kept it very cool and simple as well. And in your free time, these are examples you can go around and look. Well, enough of the fun. Let's go back to now creating our own open data site. So what you have seen are examples of well created sites. Now let's create our own. I mean, why not? Let's create our own site. So to create an open data site, you simply come to sites. On the, remember what we did, we click the second last tab on settings. You come to site and you say create a new site. So here, this is the most basic part of this application, because all you need to do is give it a name. So let's call it webinar open data. How do you want people to accessing this site to view the URL? Well, let's say open data webinar, remember, here you will not leave any spaces. You will not leave any spaces at all, because this is a URL name. So let's just say webinar for open data. I'm afraid I'd already used the other site URL. So then the browser icon, let's use the default browser icon. Sorry for that. Let's use the default browser icon for now. Let's draw an extent. So here you set the extent, and this is just where you'd like the map to range. So, well, I prefer drawing an extent. You may use map navigation, but you can come and simply say, I'd like this area Kenya. Let's try that again. You can just say, well, I want this area Kenya to be the area that is zoomed to. And well, that's it. That's the first step to creating your open data site. Click on next. Well, it saves the information that you have put here, and you go to the next step where, as we talked about, will now be the, not really configuration, but let's wait for it to save, and then we can go and change on the capabilities. Now further go to we can further go to the configuration time. I believe that my internet is a bit slow, and that's why it's taking quite a long time to do this. We do apologize. Uh, we do apologize for the slow internet, but let's just give it some time. So you realize that until this level, there's nothing much I've really done other than just filling in options that I'm given by the templates. And now we go to the other section, the group manager. So here, this is where I select the group that I'd like to add. Now, remember we created a group called the Open Data Webinar, right? So I'll come here and say, well, I'd like to use this group in my open data site. Add it there. Well, everything that is in this group, open data webinar group, will be accessible on our site. And remember, I have not added anything yet in this group, and we are going to look at that in just a minute. So what is in our open data webinar group? I'm sorry for that. Well, let's look at what is in our open data webinar group. Well, let's go to our groups here, and our open data group should be somewhere just here. So here is our open data webinar group. Sorry about that. Here are the groups. So what I want to do is I want to add the data that we will be using in our open data webinar group. So here is our group. Let me just open it so that you can see it is empty. And in future, when you're creating your own group, so you can see that right now this group has no content, and we would like to use it on our open data site, so it has to have some content. So let me quickly add some content. So first of all, I'm going to add to this group a map. I'm going to add to this group the Kenya map, and then I'm going to add a layer. So let me add the Kenya map. I think it may be a bit hidden, but we will find it and we will use it. It can never hurt forever. So let's find the first, which is let's use this layer right here, the Kenya map, and then eventually we'll add. So to add this layer to the group, we simply come to share, go to open data webinar, the group that we have created, and we say, okay, share it with that group. Come back to the content, go to the layers section, choose maps, and say, well, I want to add this map. I told you would find it. So come to the map and say share, and remember we named our group open data webinar. So come here and say share with the open data webinar group. Come back to my content. I'd like to add another layer called the Kenya counties. So come right here, click on layers, and say I'd like to work with this layer, Kenya counties. I simply click on open Kenya counties layer, come to share, and as well share to the open data webinar group. I would then like to add a PDF to the same group. So I simply come to my content again. Remember, I already uploaded these files and everything. So I can come here and say, well, I'd like to use this CSV file right here, and I'd like to use, well, I believe there was a PDF, which we may ignore for now, but there is indeed a capability of uploading a PDF as well to the open data site. So what we are simply doing is we are sharing this data with the group so that we can access this data from the open data site that we will link, or rather we have just linked to the group. So back to the group, let us just refresh to see the content that we have added. And boom, you can now see that we have the data that we have added here. Now let us quickly go back. Let us quickly go back to our demonstration. So this is where we were. So we have just added this group, and I wanted to intentionally add this data to this group so that you will not forget why we are adding this group to our site. So I have come to Group Manager and I've added the Open Data Webinar and told the configurer that, hey, I'd like to use this Open Data Webinar group because it is the one that has the content, and it is the group that I will be updating content to every now and then, and I'd like to be picking content from here and sharing it in my site. So up next, you simply come, and after adding the necessary groups, you now finally come to the configuration. So this is where all the magic happens. I want to say this is where you configure everything. Let's briefly look at it before we even touch anything. So this is how it appears by default. We have a title, we have a short description to the title, we have another description right there, we have this section here where you can clearly see some buttons, some icons rather, for agriculture, boundaries, business, you name it. We can see further, we have another section talking about applications. And remember, this is fully template. This is all for you to customize. This is all for you to interact with. See, what would you like to keep? What would you like to change? How would you like to change it? How would you like to keep it? So this has been enabled for you by Esri, simply to go out of your way and make use of it as much as possible. So this is another section where we talk about our developers, how you can use our ArcGIS for developers to do your own development. This is I want to say the second last section where you can see cross-functional events, and then this is the last section where you can see you have some contact information here. And just note that as I put my mouse in a certain area, you see these buttons appearing right here. So this is the delete button, the navigate button, and the settings button. So these are what we are simply going to play around with and change some of these settings. So allow me then to go to the configuration part. So I'll come to the first section and say, well, I like it the way it is, so perhaps let me change settings here. So you can see that the name data sharing appears here. So let us just change this to open data. Let's come to the sub headline and maybe say something like search, visualize, download, create data from the webinar by Esri Eastern Africa. This is just a simple change right there. So let's go to the next section where we may say, well, and not the button that I'm clicking the middle button in order to get to interact with the data. So let's say add a short description here. I had my description somewhere. Allow me to just check for it just a minute. So let's just copy paste this description here. Come and copy paste this description here, and this is just a simple description. So remember that you can play around with the way the outlook. Let's say you can just change justify to center and see what happens for us who have interacted with HTML. We know this. I may just come here and say, well, I'd like this to be perhaps heading 1, and this, I'm not really coding anything. I'm just playing around with some of these features so that you can see the functionalities that you can put in here. So, well, does it look better or worse? You'll be the judge, but you can see that we have managed to change 1, 2. So let's come to the most important section. This is the most important section in open data because this is where the data is. Well, the other parts are also important because you may want to share a description about who you guys are, how people may find you, but this is where someone comes into this site to majorly interact with. And as you saw in the examples that we shared, there are some organizations that just focused specifically on this section and really minimized on the other section. So then how do we add our data? We won't really need this editor for now. So how do we, let's for instance say we want to add data about Kenya, but for this case study, let's use the name webinar, for instance, so that you people may relate a lot. So I simply come here and say, I want to call this webinar, and in the query, a query is simply how will people search for this data? Where will this data come from? Will I use a tag or will I use a group? I feel like, well, let's use a group because we have created a group and it will go to waste if we do not use that group. I mean, surely want it. The group that I'm going to use here is the Open Data Webinar, and I'm going to pick an icon. You can either choose from library. The library entails of the icons that you have been provided for. And these are some of the icons that you have been provided for. Well, I wouldn't like to use any of these icons because I feel like it has not been provided, so what do I do? Well, there is another option, provide a URL for your own. So what you can do is you can upload an image of your own choice to ArcGIS online by just simply adding an item, picking your image, and come here and add a URL for the same. So I had already uploaded mine, and here is the URL for my image. So I'm simply going to copy paste that URL here, and the alternative text, what should appear in case my icon does not load a bit fast? Well, let webinar be the alternative text. And you can see already we have made our changes here. Now remember it was agriculture with a leafy icon, and now we have our own icon here. So let's delete some of this because we can, right? So let's delete that. And you notice that you can come and say, I need this to move to this other side a bit. Yeah, so maybe I overmoved right there. So yeah, let's see. Okay, so how do we add data then to this group? The funny thing is we have already added data. Why? We have already linked it to a group that has data. So once someone will click on this icon webinar, they'll be able to access all the data that we have put in that group. It is as simple as that. And we are going to see that as we preview what we have created. So let's go to the other section where, well, do you want to keep this section? Let's say in our case we don't. Maybe we don't need to keep this section. So what do? We simply delete this section. Let's perhaps keep this section, and then let's delete the rest. Maybe we do not need this section. You simply do away with this section, and you may change this image, add some text here, but for now perhaps let us just delete this section. So we have a very simple open data site, and it only perhaps has one working icon, yeah, and the rest are just here for beauty, but you can in your own time add and play around with icons to have 10, 20, 5, you name it. So let's come here and maybe you want to edit this section as well. Let the text not scare you. This is just what you see is what you get kind of interface. So this is the text that you're looking for. So you simply come here and say, where is that text? Well, here it is, and put your email. Let's say your email is webinar@thursday.com. Come here and say, email me at webinar@thursday.com. Well, this doesn't make any sense, but I believe you can relate to it because that's where we are. That's what we are doing right now. We're in a webinar on a Thursday. What better way to put it? So let's say this other section, you also, perhaps you don't need this. So let's do away with that. Perhaps you don't need this as well. Let's do away with that. And perhaps you don't need this. Let's do away with that. So it's very important to see that we have an empty row here. And I wanted to show you guys how we can add. Perhaps you want to add something. You want to add your own header. You want to add your own banner. How do we do it? So you'll simply come to the site editor. You click the settings button and you come to the site editor. Here we have header settings. Here we have the theme builder, where you can play around with the colors. Like you can change this color here, where we have the layout builder and the footer settings. So this layout builder is the most important because, well, you may want to add, let's say you want to add a banner. So you simply come here and say, I like to add a banner here. And my banner will say, hello world, this is our open data site. Let's change this. Instead of hello world, let's say, thank you for visiting our site. Instead of this is our open data site, let's say, please share your feedback and we will be glad to help where necessary. So that's it. We have our site. I hope you've seen how we've simply added this banner, and we can play around with it. Say, well, we need to change the background color. This color may not be very interesting. I had a color in mind, and let's use this color, for instance. All you need to do is come here and change the hexacode, and immediately you can see it changes. Well, I like it so far, so I'd like to now share it with the public. And what do? I simply come to the settings, back, and save. Remember, it is very important to save your work because we may have done all this and for nothing, because if you do not save your work, then what do you expect? Someone sang, what do you expect? Sang it for a reason. So let's view our site here, and voila, we have simply and very swiftly created an open data site. Just like that, we have our descriptions as we put, we have a short description there, and most importantly, what I want us to observe is when we click on webinar, we now have all the data in the group appearing here. So we can see the Kenya water bodies, the Kenya map, the Kenya roads, the Kenya map, Kenya towns, all these. we put in that group, and we can see that indeed. Let's click on that, for instance, and well, that may not, oh, it was taking some time to load. So let's click on that. So this is a map that the public, assuming that you and I are the public, then we are seeing a map on this open data site. We may come here and favorite it. We may say, for instance, let's look at another data set. Let us look at the Kenya counties. This is awesome because you can now see some functionalities have increased here. You can see there is a short description here, and you can see that apart from the map showing here, we have some further, the chart here, the map visualization, and these are the fields in the map. So this is the related data. You can see other maps that are related to this data. So perhaps we want to come here and we want to know which section this is. You can simply click and you'll see our pop-up here explaining which section this is. So the second part is the data. You can simply click here and you'll see what is in our table, what appears in our table. So this is basically part of 10 sections, so it has quite a number of data. So the API Explorer is also another important part, because here you can get to query and get some results out of it. We may not do this right now, but hey, I mean it is as good as it looks, because you can play around with everything and get the results that you'd like. So let's say maybe you want to maybe favorite this or the original. If you click on the original, then it will take you to the original map. So maybe you want to download a spreadsheet, a KML or a shapefile of the same. So as I was telling you in the PowerPoint presentation, this is where you simply come, click download, and you proceed to download a spreadsheet, KML, or a shapefile. APIs, well, here you can have a GeoService or a GeoJSON, and you can download them as well, as you saw in our presentation. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to sum up my presentation. From now on, everything will just be all about summing up. So what we have discussed is how to create, how to configure, and how to share. I hope you guys have learned a lot. And as I come to the end, I'd like to remind you that this video will be available on our YouTube Esri Eastern Africa channel, and we will share this on our social media platforms as well. So I don't know if we have any questions. If we have any questions, we will be responding to most of them on our page. So I believe with that, thank you very much, and please do bring forth your questions. We will be responding to all of them on our social media platforms. Thank you very much.